Imagine walking down a quiet forest trail, the golden light of the setting sun filtering through the trees. Suddenly, you hear frantic yelps cutting through the calm. You turn to see a terrified golden retriever puppy running for its life, chased by a pack of relentless coyotes. The puppy's desperation is palpable, and you're its only hope. What happens next will take your breath away, as this encounter leads to a miraculous turn of events you'll never forget. Stay tuned, because this story is about courage, compassion, and the unexpected power of kindness. The forest was unusually serene that evening, with the golden hues of the setting sun casting long shadows across the woodland floor. Birds chirped faintly as the wind rustled the leaves, a peaceful melody accompanying the quiet solitude. Liam, an avid hiker and lover of nature, had set out on his usual evening walk, hoping to clear his mind after a long day. The familiar trail, bordered by towering oaks and soft undergrowth, had always been his sanctuary. As he rounded a bend, a sudden sound pierced the tranquility, a desperate, high-pitched yelp, followed by the unmistakable growl of predators. Liam froze, his heart racing. His eyes scanned the dense foliage, and that's when he saw it. A small golden retriever puppy, no more than a few months old, darting frantically through the trees. Its golden coat was streaked with dirt and fear, and its tiny legs struggled to outrun the pack of coyotes hot on its heels. Instinctively, Liam stepped forward, his protective instincts overriding any fear he might have felt. The coyotes, their eyes gleaming with predatory focus, were gaining on the puppy. The pup, exhausted and desperate, stumbled and let out another helpless yelp, its wide eyes locking with Liam's for a fleeting moment. Without thinking, Liam grabbed a sturdy branch from the ground and charged toward the pack, shouting at the top of his lungs. The coyotes hesitated, their predatory confidence faltering in the face of the unexpected challenge. With a few well-aimed swings, Liam managed to drive them back, the startled animals retreating into the shadows with snarls of frustration. The puppy, now trembling and panting heavily, collapsed at Liam's feet. He knelt down, his voice soft and soothing, as he gently reached out to the frightened creature. "It's okay, little one," he murmured. "You're safe now." The puppy, sensing the kindness in his voice, slowly inched closer, nuzzling into Liam's outstretched hand. As he lifted the small dog into his arms, Liam noticed the deep scratches and minor wounds on its tiny body, evidence of the harrowing ordeal it had endured. Determined to help, he turned back toward the trailhead, unaware that this simple act of compassion would soon lead to an astonishing miracle. Liam cradled the trembling puppy in his arms as he made his way back to the trailhead. The pup's golden fur was soft, but patches were matted with dirt and specks of dried blood. Its wide brown eyes darted nervously, scanning the surroundings as if expecting the coyotes to return at any moment. "It's okay, buddy," Liam murmured, adjusting his grip to provide the pup more comfort. "No one's going to hurt you now." The weight of the tiny creature in his arms was light, but the responsibility Liam now carried felt heavier with every step. As an experienced hiker, he was no stranger to wildlife encounters, but this was different. This wasn't a wild animal, it was someone's pet, likely lost or abandoned, and it desperately needed help. Reaching the parking lot, Liam gently placed the pup on a blanket he kept in the trunk of his SUV. The dog, now slightly calmer, sniffed the air nervously, still visibly shaken from the ordeal. Liam crouched down to its level, his voice steady and soothing. "Let's check you out, okay?" Inspecting the pup, he found a few superficial scratches on its legs and belly. A particularly nasty scrape ran along its side, likely from a close call with one of the coyote's sharp claws. Liam opened his first aid kit, grateful for the habit of carrying it on his outdoor adventures. Carefully, he cleaned the wounds with antiseptic wipes while murmuring reassurances. The puppy whimpered but didn't resist, its trust in Liam growing with every gentle touch. Once the wounds were cleaned and bandaged as best as he could manage, Liam sat back on his heels, studying the dog. Its golden coat gleamed even under the dirt, and its floppy ears twitched at every sound. A pang of sadness tugged at Liam's heart. This was no stray. It was clearly a well-cared-for pup before it ended up here. Where had it come from, and why had it been left to fend for itself in the forest? Liam grabbed his phone and snapped a few pictures of the dog. He planned to post them online and visit local shelters to see if anyone was searching for a missing golden retriever puppy. But for now, the immediate priority was getting the little one to safety and ensuring it received proper care. Sliding into the driver's seat, Liam started the engine, the gentle hum calming the nervous puppy. "Don't worry, little guy," he said, glancing at the dog curled up on the blanket. "We'll figure this out together." As he drove, Liam couldn't help but reflect on his life over the past few months. Since leaving the police force after years of service, he had struggled to find purpose. His days were filled with routine, his evenings spent in solitude. His dog, Max, a loyal German shepherd and his former canine partner, had passed away just 6 months ago. The loss had left a gaping hole in his heart, one he hadn't been able to fill. But as he glanced at the tiny golden bundle resting peacefully in the back, he felt a faint flicker of something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The drive to the nearest animal clinic took about 30 minutes. By the time they arrived, the puppy was fast asleep, its small body rising and falling with each peaceful breath. Liam gently scooped it up and carried it inside. The receptionist at the clinic looked up in surprise as Liam approached. "Oh my, what happened to this little one?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. "I found him in the forest," Liam explained, his voice tinged with urgency. "He was being chased by coyotes. I cleaned up his wounds, but he needs proper care." The receptionist nodded, motioning for a vet tech to assist. Within moments, the puppy was whisked away to an examination room. Liam filled out the necessary paperwork, listing the pup as a found animal and detailing the events leading up to its rescue. Sitting in the waiting room, Liam's mind wandered. What if no one came forward to claim the pup? Could he take it in? Did he even have the heart to care for another dog after losing Max? The thought was both daunting and oddly comforting. The vet emerged after what felt like an eternity, a reassuring smile on her face. "The little guy is going to be just fine," she said. "The wounds are minor, and we've treated him for parasites and dehydration. He's a tough one." Relief washed over Liam as the vet continued. "Are you planning to keep him, or should we contact local shelters?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Liam hesitated, looking through the glass door into the examination room where the puppy lay on a soft bed, wagging its tiny tail despite its bandages. I'm not sure yet," he admitted. "But I think he might need me as much as I need him." Liam brought the puppy home that evening, a sense of cautious optimism settling over him. It had been a long time since his house had felt alive, and now as he opened the door and carried the tiny golden retriever inside, the familiar stillness seemed less overwhelming. He set the puppy down on the living room floor, its bandaged side clearly visible, and watched as it hesitated, its nose twitching at the unfamiliar smells. Liam knelt beside it, gently stroking its back. "This is home now," he said softly. "At least for a while." The puppy sniffed at the edge of the couch before slowly padding to a corner of the room. It circled twice and settled on the floor, its tail curling close to its body. Liam took a deep breath, the sight stirring emotions he wasn't entirely ready to confront. The last time there had been a dog in this house, it had been Max, his loyal partner and best friend. The memories were sharp, and yet, watching the little pup trustingly fall asleep, Liam felt the tiniest spark of healing. Over the next few days, caring for the puppy became a new routine. Liam fed it small portions of food, ensuring its sensitive stomach wasn't overwhelmed, and applied fresh bandages to its healing wounds. He nicknamed the pup Buddy, a name that felt simple yet fitting. Every wag of Buddy's tail and every excited bark brought warmth back into the home. However, challenges quickly arose. Buddy's injuries, though healing, required careful attention. During one of their walks, the pup stumbled and let out a sharp yelp, its bandaged side clearly bothering it. Liam immediately scooped it up, his concern outweighing the curious glances from passers-by. "You're tougher than you look, little guy," he murmured, carrying Buddy back home. Despite the pain, the puppy nuzzled into Liam's chest, its trust in him unwavering. It was a reminder of just how fragile Buddy was and how much Liam had already come to care for him. While tending to Buddy's needs, Liam also began searching for answers. He posted pictures of the pup online and contacted local shelters, asking if anyone had reported a missing golden retriever. Days passed with no responses, and Liam couldn't shake the feeling that Buddy had been abandoned. The thought infuriated him. How could anyone leave such a helpless creature to fend for itself? One afternoon, Liam decided to take Buddy to the park. The little pup needed space to explore, and Liam figured the fresh air would do them both some good. Buddy's tail wagged excitedly as Liam set him down on the grass, and within moments, the pup was sniffing at every leaf and blade of grass within reach. Liam chuckled, his heart warming at the sight. For the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of peace. Buddy's energy was contagious, and Liam found himself smiling more often than he had in months. Their peaceful outing was interrupted when a young boy approached, his wide eyes fixed on Buddy. "Is that your dog?" the boy asked, his voice tinged with awe. Liam hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I'm not sure yet," he admitted. "I found him in the woods." The boy crouched down, extending a cautious hand toward Buddy, who sniffed it before licking his fingers. "He's really cute," the boy said, grinning. "You should keep him." Liam smiled at the boy's innocence. "I'm thinking about it," he replied. But deep down, he already knew the truth. Buddy wasn't just a temporary guest anymore, he was family. That evening, Liam sat on the couch with Buddy curled up beside him. The pup's breathing was steady, its small chest rising and falling in a rhythm that Liam found oddly comforting. His phone buzzed on the coffee table, and he reached for it, expecting another dead-end response from a shelter. Instead, it was a text from an old friend from the police force, Officer Karen Hayes. Karen had seen Liam's post about the puppy and wanted to visit. "You've got a soft spot for strays, huh?" Her message read, followed by a laughing emoji. Liam chuckled, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he replied, "Not strays. Heroes in disguise." Karen arrived the next day, bringing her usual no-nonsense attitude and a bag of dog treats. Buddy greeted her with a mix of excitement and caution, sniffing at her outstretched hand before deciding she was trustworthy. "You've got a good one here," Karen said, watching as Buddy happily gnawed on a treat. "You keeping him?" "I think he's keeping me," Liam admitted. Karen smiled knowingly but didn't press further. As they talked, Karen mentioned something that made Liam's heart skip a beat. "You know," she said, leaning back in her chair, "a dog like this, he could have been dumped because he was injured. Some people don't want to deal with the effort." Liam clenched his jaw, his protective instincts flaring. "Well, he's got someone now who won't give up on him." Karen nodded, her expression softening. "I'm glad he found you." That night, as Liam prepared for bed, he found Buddy waiting for him by the door. The pup wagged its tail expectantly, clearly wanting to stay close. Liam sighed, scooping Buddy up and placing him on the bed. "You're spoiled already," he said, though his tone was affectionate. Buddy curled up beside him, its head resting on his arm. For the first time in months, Liam fell asleep without the heavy weight of loneliness pressing on his chest. Instead, he felt hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this little golden miracle was exactly what he needed to find himself again. A week later, Liam and Buddy had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Buddy's wounds were healing well and his playful personality was blossoming. Liam found himself looking forward to their daily walks, the pup's boundless enthusiasm adding purpose to his days. One crisp morning, as they strolled through the park, Buddy suddenly froze, his ears perking up. He let out a low growl, his body tense and alert. Liam followed Buddy's gaze and saw a figure standing at the edge of the woods. The man was tall and rugged, with a hood pulled low over his face. Something about him felt off. "Easy, Buddy," Liam murmured, tightening his grip on the leash. The man didn't approach but remained rooted in place, his gaze fixed on them. After a tense moment, he turned and disappeared into the trees. The encounter left Liam unsettled. Who was that man, and why had he been watching them? Buddy's reaction was uncharacteristic. He was usually friendly with everyone. Liam made a mental note to be more vigilant during their walks. Later that day, Liam stopped by the vet for a routine checkup. Dr. Harper, a warm and experienced veterinarian, examined Buddy thoroughly. "He's healing beautifully," she said, scratching behind Buddy's ears. "You've been taking great care of him." As Liam prepared to leave, Dr. Harper hesitated. "There's something odd I need to mention," she said, her tone serious. When I scanned Buddy for a microchip during his first visit, I found one. I didn't think much of it then, but I decided to dig deeper. Liam's heart skipped a beat. And the chip is registered to someone, but the information is strange. The name listed is an alias, and the address leads to a storage unit in a nearby town. It's almost like someone didn't want to be found. Liam frowned. Could it belong to the person who abandoned him? Dr. Harper nodded. That's possible, but here's the twist. The chip was implanted less than a year ago. Buddy might have belonged to someone recently. The revelation left Liam reeling. The idea that Buddy had a mysterious past, one that someone might have gone to great lengths to hide, unsettled him. "What should I do?" he asked. "Doctor." Harper handed him a card with contact information for a local animal rescue group. "They have experience dealing with cases like this. They might be able to help trace Buddy's history." That evening, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He called the rescue group, explaining the situation. A woman named Tessa promised to look into the microchip and get back to him. Meanwhile, Buddy seemed oblivious to the weight of the mystery surrounding him. He happily chewed on a toy in the corner, his tail wagging contentedly. Liam envied the pup's carefree demeanor. "What's your story, little guy?" he mused aloud. "Who are you running from?" The next morning, Liam received a call from Tessa. "We found something," she said, her voice cautious. "The name tied to Buddy's microchip is linked to a known dog breeder with a history of illegal practices. We believe Buddy might have been part of a group of dogs bred and sold under unethical conditions." Liam's stomach churned. Why would they abandon him? Tessa hesitated. "That's hard to say, but sometimes breeders discard dogs they consider unfit for sale. Injuries, illnesses, or behavioral issues. It's heartbreaking, but it happens more often than you'd think." Liam clenched his jaw, anger bubbling inside him. "Is there anything we can do to hold them accountable?" "We're working with local authorities to investigate," Tessa replied. "But for now, be cautious. If Buddy escaped from someone, they might come looking for him." The words sent a chill down Liam's spine. His thoughts immediately went to the man in the park. Was it possible he was connected to Buddy's past? Over the next few days, Liam noticed subtle but unnerving changes. Cars he didn't recognize parked on his quiet street for hours. Strangers loitered near his neighborhood park. And Buddy, usually carefree, grew more alert and protective, barking at unfamiliar sounds and scents. One night, as Liam prepared for bed, Buddy began growling low in his throat. The fur along his back bristled as he stared at the front door. Liam grabbed a flashlight and cautiously approached. Peering through the peephole, he saw nothing out of the ordinary, but Buddy's reaction kept him on edge. "All right, Buddy," Liam said, locking the door and double-checking the windows. "We're not taking any chances." A few days later, Liam decided to take Buddy to a secluded trail instead of their usual park. He hoped the change of scenery would ease their nerves. The trail was quiet, the sound of rustling leaves and birdsong providing a temporary sense of calm. But as they rounded a bend, Buddy froze, his tail rigid and ears erect. Liam followed his gaze and saw a man standing on the trail ahead, the same man from the park. This time, he wasn't alone. Two others flanked him, their postures tense and threatening. "Hand over the dog," the man demanded, his voice cold. "He doesn't belong to you." Liam's heart pounded. He positioned himself between Buddy and the strangers, his protective instincts kicking in. "He's not going anywhere," Liam replied firmly. The man smirked. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. That dog is worth more than you realize." Liam didn't back down. "If you want him, you'll have to go through me." The tension crackled in the air as Liam prepared for a confrontation, Buddy growling low by his side. Liam's hands clenched into fists, his breath steady despite the surge of adrenaline coursing through him. Buddy, standing firm at his side, let out a guttural growl, his teeth bared. The strangers ahead didn't flinch, their expressions remaining cold and calculating. "I've got some nerve," Liam said, his voice steady. "Coming after a dog like this, he's not yours and I'm not letting him go." The leader of the group stepped forward, his posture casual but his tone menacing. "You don't understand what you're holding on to, pal. That dog isn't just a stray, he's special, worth more than you could imagine. You think he's just a pet, he's an asset." The cryptic remark sent a wave of confusion and unease through Liam. "What do you mean, an asset?" The man chuckled darkly. "Let's just say he's not your average mutt. He was trained for things you wouldn't believe. But his value isn't just in what he can do, it's in who wants him back." Liam's mind raced. Was Buddy some kind of trained service animal? Or worse, had he been involved in something dangerous before escaping? The pieces of Buddy's mysterious past began to fall into place, but they only deepened the sense of urgency. "I don't care who wants him back," Liam snapped. "He's not going anywhere with you." The man's smirk faded, replaced by a hard glare. "You're making a mistake, friend. Walk away, and we'll forget this ever happened. Otherwise, things might get messy." Buddy barked sharply, the sound echoing through the quiet trail. Liam stood his ground, his determination outweighing his fear. "You can threaten me all you want, but I'm not handing over this dog." The tension in the air thickened, each side waiting for the other to make a move. Suddenly, one of the men in the group reached into his pocket, pulling out what looked like a small device. Buddy's growls intensified, his body tensing as if recognizing a threat. Liam's instincts screamed at him to act. He grabbed a nearby branch, gripping it tightly as he positioned himself protectively in front of Buddy. "You take one more step, and I'll make sure you regret it." The men exchanged glances, their confidence faltering slightly. The leader raised a hand, signaling them to stop. "All right, tough guy," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "You win this round, but don't think this is over." With that, the group retreated down the trail, their departure leaving a chilling silence in their wake. Liam waited until they were out of sight before letting out a shaky breath. He knelt down, running a hand through Buddy's fur. "Good boy," he murmured. "You did great." Buddy licked Liam's face, his tail wagging slightly, as if sensing the danger had passed. But Liam knew better. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a bigger, more dangerous ordeal. Back home, Liam locked every door and window, his mind replaying the confrontation on the trail. He couldn't shake the leader's words. "He's not just a stray, he's special." What did that mean? And who was willing to go to such lengths to retrieve Buddy? Liam called Tessa from the animal rescue group, recounting the incident in detail. Her response was grave. "Liam, this isn't normal. If those men knew Buddy's value, it means they're part of something bigger. You need to be careful." "What do I do?" Liam asked, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "First, we need to protect Buddy," Tessa said. "I'll contact some people who can help us figure out what's going on. In the meantime, don't go anywhere alone and make sure Buddy is always with you." Liam agreed, his resolve strengthening. If Buddy was in danger, he would do whatever it took to keep him safe. The next morning, Liam noticed a car parked across the street from his house. The same vehicle had been there the night before, its windows tinted, its engine idling for hours. Buddy, sitting by the window, growled softly. "They're watching us," Liam muttered, his gaze narrowing. He knew confronting them outright wasn't an option, so he decided to call the police. When the officer arrived, the car was gone, leaving Liam with nothing but a deepening sense of paranoia. As the days passed, Liam's routine changed. He avoided the park, taking Buddy on walks in less predictable patterns. He kept his phone charged and his doors locked at all times. The bond between him and Buddy grew even stronger, the dog sensing Liam's determination to protect him. But the unease remained. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed, that every shadow and every sound could be a threat. And as much as he tried to reassure himself, he knew the confrontation on the trail had been a warning. One evening, as Liam prepared for bed, his phone buzzed. It was Tessa. "Liam, I've got news," she said, her voice urgent. "The breeder connected to Buddy's microchip is under investigation. It turns out they were involved in training dogs for illegal activities, fighting, smuggling, even military operations. Buddy might be more than just a rescue." The revelation sent a chill down Liam's spine. "So he's not just a stray." "No," Tessa confirmed. "He's a survivor of something terrible. And now, the people who lost him want him back." Liam's jaw tightened. "Over my dead body." The revelation about Buddy's past weighed heavily on Liam's mind. A mix of anger and sadness churned within him as he looked at the golden retriever lying peacefully by the fireplace. How could anyone use such a gentle creature for something so cruel? And worse, what did it mean for their future? That night, Liam couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every distant sound from the street outside made his heart race. He felt like a target, and more importantly, he feared for Buddy's safety. If the men from the trail were willing to confront him once, they could try again, and next time they might not leave so easily. The following morning, Liam decided to act. He called Tessa back, explaining the situation. "I need to know everything about Buddy's history," he said. "If there's anything else, anything that can help me protect him, I need to know." Tessa hesitated. "There's someone I know who might be able to help. A former trainer who worked with these kinds of dogs before turning whistleblower. He's reclusive, but if anyone can shed light on what Buddy's been through, it's him." "Where can I find him?" Liam asked. Tessa gave him a location, a small cabin deep in the woods outside the city. "But be careful," she warned. "This guy doesn't trust easily, and his past is just as complicated as Buddy's." Liam loaded Buddy into his truck and set off for the cabin. The drive was long and winding, the scenery changing from suburban sprawl to dense forest. As they approached the cabin, Buddy's ears perked up, his tail wagging slightly as if he sensed something familiar. The cabin's owner, a grizzled man named Victor, greeted them at the door. His sharp eyes scanned Liam and Buddy with suspicion. "Are you from Tessa's group?" he asked, his voice gruff. Liam nodded. "She said you might know something about Buddy. He's special, isn't he?" Victor's gaze softened as he looked at the dog. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. Inside the cabin, Victor examined Buddy carefully, his touch gentle but methodical. "This dog's been through hell," he said finally. "Scars on his paws, faint burns on his coat. He was trained, no doubt about it. And from what I can tell, he's one of the best." Liam frowned. "Trained for what?" Victor sighed. "Military and black market operations. Dogs like Buddy are conditioned to follow commands under extreme circumstances. They're loyal, intelligent, and capable of things most people can't imagine. But when they're no longer useful, well, they're discarded like trash." The words hit Liam like a punch to the gut. He looked at Buddy, who stared back with trusting eyes. "He deserves better," Liam said quietly. "I won't let anyone take him back to that life." Victor nodded. "Good. But you should know if someone's coming after him, they won't stop. These people don't like to lose what they consider property." Victor offered to help, showing Liam techniques to train and protect Buddy. "He's still got those skills buried in him," Victor explained. "You just need to bring them out." Over the next few days, Liam and Buddy practiced together under Victor's guidance. Buddy's natural instincts shone through, quick reflexes, sharp focus, and an uncanny ability to sense danger. Liam couldn't believe the transformation. The playful dog he'd rescued was now showing glimpses of the warrior he had been trained to be. Meanwhile, back in town, the men from the trail weren't idle. They tracked Liam's movements, piecing together his routine. One of them, a wiry man with a permanent scowl, reported to the leader. "He's gone off the grid," he said. "Last we saw, he was heading out of town with the dog." The leader sneered. "Then we follow him. He won't get far." Unbeknownst to Liam, the men were closing in. They found the cabin late one evening, parking their black SUV a short distance away. Inside, Liam, Buddy, and Victor were unaware of the danger lurking just beyond the trees. Victor was the first to sense something was off. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his hand instinctively reaching for the rifle propped against the wall. Liam froze, listening intently. Then came the sound, a faint crunch of leaves outside, followed by hushed whispers. Buddy growled low, his body tense. "They've found us," Victor muttered, his face grim. "Get ready." The cabin turned into a fortress. Victor handed Liam a flashlight and motioned for him to stay low. "If they're here for Buddy, they'll try to scare us out first. We hold our ground." As the minutes stretched into an agonizing silence, the tension became unbearable. Then, a loud bang shattered the quiet, a rock thrown against the window, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching the door. Victor raised his rifle, signaling Liam to stay back. "They're not taking this dog," he said, his voice steady. The confrontation was imminent, the stakes higher than ever. Liam looked at Buddy, who stood at his side, ready for whatever came next. The bond between them had never felt stronger, and Liam knew they would face this together. The moments of silence after the rock hit the window felt like an eternity. Liam's heart pounded in his chest as he crouched next to Buddy, who remained vigilant, his sharp eyes fixed on the door. Victor's rifle was trained on the entryway, his breathing slow and measured. "They're testing us," Victor muttered, "trying to see how we'll react. Don't let them rattle you." Liam clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath his fear. "This isn't just about the dog anymore. They think they can bully their way into getting what they want." Victor nodded, his gaze never leaving the door. "Exactly. That's why we can't give them the upper hand. But you need to be prepared for what comes next. These people don't care about playing fair." Outside, the intruders murmured among themselves, their shadows visible through the curtains. One of them stepped closer, their voice loud enough to carry into the cabin. "We know you're in there. All we want is the dog. Hand him over and no one gets hurt." Victor barked a reply, his tone unwavering. "Not a chance. You're trespassing on private property. Get out of here before this gets ugly." A tense silence followed, broken only by the faint rustling of leaves. Liam's grip tightened on the flashlight in his hand, his mind racing. How had he ended up here, defending a dog against armed strangers in the middle of nowhere? Yet, when he looked at Buddy, the fear melted away, replaced by an unshakable resolve. This wasn't just any dog. Buddy had fought to survive unimaginable circumstances, and Liam wasn't going to let him down. The standoff escalated when one of the men outside smashed a window with the butt of a crowbar. Glass shards scattered across the floor, and Buddy barked fiercely, his growl reverberating through the room. Victor motioned for Liam to move back, his expression grim. "Stay with the dog. Keep him calm. I'll handle this." Liam hesitated, his instincts urging him to fight alongside Victor. "You don't have to do this alone." Victor glanced at him, a flicker of gratitude in his hardened gaze. "I've faced worse, kid. But your buddy needs you to be his anchor right now. Don't let him lose control." Reluctantly, Liam obeyed, crouching beside Buddy and holding him close. The dog's trembling subsided as Liam whispered words of reassurance. "It's okay, boy. We've got this." The men outside grew bolder, advancing toward the cabin. Victor fired a warning shot into the air, the deafening crack of the rifle echoing through the woods. "Last chance," he shouted. "Leave, or you'll regret it." The leader of the group stepped into view, illuminated by the faint glow of a flashlight. He smirked, clearly unfazed by the warning. "You've got guts, old man." "But guts won't save you." The standoff dragged on, the tension mounting with each passing second. Liam's mind churned with doubts and questions. Could they hold their ground? What if the intruders decided to rush them? And what would happen to Buddy if they lost? Amid the chaos, Liam felt a pang of guilt. "This is my fault," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "If I hadn't taken Buddy in, none of this would be happening." Victor overheard him and shook his head. "Don't do that to yourself. You didn't ask for this, and neither did Buddy. But now that it's here, you've got to rise to the occasion. That dog's counting on you." Liam's gaze hardened. He looked at Buddy, who stared back with unwavering trust. The guilt dissipated, replaced by determination. "Oh, you're right," he said. "I won't let him down." Just then a second window shattered, and smoke began to fill the room. One of the intruders had thrown a canister of tear gas inside. Liam and Victor scrambled to cover their faces, coughing as the acrid fumes spread. "They're trying to flush us out," Victor shouted, his voice muffled by the fabric of his shirt. "We need to move, now." Liam grabbed Buddy, who was barking furiously, and followed Victor toward the back door. Their escape route led into the dense forest, where the shadows offered some cover. As they emerged into the cool night air, Liam's lungs burned, but relief surged through him. They were out, but the danger was far from over. The intruders weren't far behind. Flashlights cut through the darkness as they pursued their targets, their voices filled with anger and determination. Liam's pulse raced as he and Victor weaved through the trees, Buddy staying close by his side. "We need a plan," Liam panted. "We can't outrun them forever." Victor nodded, his mind working quickly. "There's a ravine up ahead. If we can reach it, We might be able to set a trap. They're not expecting us to fight back." Despite his fear, Liam couldn't help but admire Victor's composure. "Lead the way." As they pressed on, Liam realized that the fight wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that they wouldn't be intimidated, that they wouldn't abandon Buddy to a life of suffering. The sound of footsteps crunching through the underbrush grew louder, and Liam's heart pounded in rhythm with his hurried breaths. He tightened his grip on Buddy's leash, keeping the dog close as they followed Victor deeper into the forest. The old cop moved with surprising agility, his years of training evident in every calculated step. "Almost there," Victor whispered, glancing back at Liam. "Keep quiet and stay close." The ravine came into view, its steep drop veiled by dense foliage. Victor stopped at the edge, scanning the area for an advantage. "We'll split up," he said, his voice low but firm. "I'll draw their attention and lead them toward the edge. You take Buddy and stay hidden. When the time's right, we'll strike." Liam hesitated, his eyes darting between Victor and the darkness behind them. "Are you sure about this? What if they catch you?" Victor's lips curled into a wry smile. "They'll regret it if they do. Trust me, kid. This isn't my first rodeo." As Victor disappeared into the shadows, Liam crouched behind a cluster of bushes with Buddy by his side. The dog's ears twitched, his body taut with anticipation. Liam placed a hand on his head, whispering softly, "It's okay, Buddy. We'll get through this." Minutes passed like hours, the silence broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Liam's mind raced with worst-case scenarios, but he forced himself to stay focused. He knew that Victor was counting on him, just as Buddy had counted on him from the moment they met. Then, voices echoed through the trees. "There! I saw something move," one of the men shouted. Another replied, his tone laced with frustration. "This is taking too long. Let's finish this and get out of here." Liam peeked through the leaves and saw flashlights sweeping the area. The intruders were closing in, their aggressive demeanor unmistakable. He could see the leader barking orders, his impatience growing with every passing second. But something about their movements struck Liam as strange. They weren't just searching aimlessly. They seemed to be avoiding certain areas, as if they knew the forest held dangers of its own. This realization sent a chill down his spine. What did they know that he didn't? As if to answer his unspoken question, a low growl resonated from the darkness. It wasn't Buddy. Liam's blood ran cold as he turned to see a pair of glowing eyes watching from the shadows. Buddy tensed, his own growl rising in response. Liam instinctively placed a calming hand on the dog's back, his eyes locked on the predator lurking nearby. A wolf, its sleek frame illuminated by the faint moonlight, emerged from the underbrush. It wasn't alone. 2 more wolves flanked it, their eyes fixed on the intruders. The gang members froze, their bravado faltering as they realized they weren't the only predators in the forest. "Wolves," one of them muttered, his voice trembling. "We need to get out of here." "Not until we find that dog," the leader snapped, though his eyes betrayed his unease. "Stay together and keep moving." The wolves didn't charge, but their presence added a new layer of tension to the standoff. Liam watched in stunned silence as the pack moved closer, their calculated movements a stark contrast to the gang's disorganized retreat. He realized that the wolves weren't just a threat, they were an opportunity. Victor reappeared, his silhouette barely visible against the darkness. He motioned for Liam to stay low as he crept toward the gang, his every movement deliberate and quiet. Liam marveled at the older man's composure, even in the face of such danger. With the wolves serving as an unintentional distraction, Victor moved into position near the ravine. He picked up a heavy branch, testing its weight before gripping it firmly. Liam could see his plan unfolding. He would use the wolves' presence to spook the gang, driving them toward the edge. Liam's heart pounded as he watched the scene unfold. The gang was growing increasingly agitated, their leader struggling to maintain control. The wolves snarled, their teeth bared as they inched closer. One of the men panicked, firing a shot into the air. The gunfire echoed through the forest, startling the wolves. And Buddy barked loudly, his instincts overriding Liam's attempts to keep him quiet. The gang's attention snapped to their hiding spot, and Liam felt a surge of panic as flashlights illuminated the bushes. "There they are!" the leader shouted. Victor acted quickly, stepping into the open and shouting, "Come on, you cowards, let's settle this." The gang turned their attention to him, drawn by the challenge. Victor led them toward the ravine, his taunts goading them into following. "What's the matter?" "Scared of an old man." Liam used the distraction to move Buddy to a safer spot, his mind racing. He trusted Victor, but the plan was risky. If anything went wrong, they'd all be in serious trouble. The wolves, sensing the escalating tension, retreated into the shadows. The gang's leader, now fixated on Victor, didn't notice the ground beneath his feet becoming more unstable. Victor stood at the edge of the ravine, his expression calm as he faced his pursuers. "End of the line," Victor said, his voice steady. "Let's see how tough you really are." The gang closed in, unaware of the danger that awaited them. Victor stood his ground at the edge of the ravine, his figure illuminated by the gang's flashlights. The faint rustling of leaves and distant howls in the forest added to the tension. Liam crouched behind a fallen tree with Buddy, his pulse racing as he watched Victor confront the gang. Every muscle in Liam's body urged him to intervene, but he knew he had to trust Victor's plan. The gang's leader stepped forward, his flashlight beam focused on Victor's face. "You've got guts, old man, I'll give you that. But this is the end of the line for you." Victor smirked, holding the heavy branch like a weapon. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing to you." The gang members chuckled nervously, clearly unsettled by Victor's calm demeanor. One of them muttered, "What's this guy's deal? He's got no backup." "Enough," the leader barked. "You've wasted enough of our time. Hand over the dog and we'll let you walk away." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Buddy isn't going anywhere with you. You don't get to hurt innocent animals or people and just walk away." Meanwhile, Liam held Buddy close, whispering soothing words to keep the dog calm. Buddy's body trembled with pent-up energy, his instincts urging him to protect Victor. Liam felt a deep connection to the dog at that moment, a shared understanding of loyalty and bravery. As Liam peered through the foliage, he noticed something odd about the gang. Their confidence seemed to waver the longer they faced Victor. It wasn't just his calm defiance, it was something deeper. Liam's mind raced as he tried to piece it together. Then it hit him. The gang's leader had a scar running down the side of his face, an unmistakable mark that Liam had seen before. He remembered a news article about a failed heist in the city years ago. A daring police raid had thwarted the gang's plans, and the leader had been captured but later escaped. The officer leading the operation had been none other than Victor. Liam's eyes widened as realization dawned. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was personal. The gang wasn't here by coincidence. They had recognized Victor, and this was their chance at revenge. Victor seemed to sense Liam's realization. He glanced briefly toward the fallen tree where Liam and Buddy were hiding, as if silently urging them to stay put. Then he turned his full attention back to the gang. "You remember me, don't you?" Victor said, his voice low and steady. "That scar on your face is my handiwork." The leader's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on his weapon. "I've waited a long time for this, old man. You ruined everything." Victor took a step closer, his movements deliberate. "And I'll do it again if I have to. But it doesn't have to end like this. Walk away while you still can." The gang members exchanged uneasy glances, their leader's fury the only thing holding them together. Liam felt the tension rising, his own adrenaline surging as he prepared for the worst. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the darkness. Liam turned to see the wolf pack re-emerging, their eyes glowing like embers in the shadows. The gang froze, their bravado crumbling as they realized they were surrounded. The wolves didn't attack, but their presence was enough to tip the balance. Victor seized the moment. "You've got two options," he said, his voice carrying over the growing tension. "Leave now and live to see another day, or stay and face the consequences." The leader hesitated, his gaze shifting between Victor and the wolves. For a moment, it seemed he might back down, but then his pride took over, and he raised his weapon. "Get him!" he shouted. The gang surged forward, but Victor was ready. With a swift swing of the branch, he knocked the weapon from the leader's hand, sending it skidding across the ground. The wolves stepped closer, their growls intensifying, adding to the chaos. Liam couldn't hold back any longer. He released Buddy's leash and whispered, "Go help him." Buddy sprang into action, his golden fur a blur as he charged toward the gang. His bark was fierce, his loyalty to Victor unwavering. The gang members panicked, their formation breaking as Buddy lunged at one of them, forcing him to the ground. Victor used the distraction to his advantage, disarming another gang member and driving them back toward the ravine. The wolves, sensing the shift in power, howled in unison, their presence a chilling reminder of the forest's danger. Liam finally stepped out of hiding, his fear replaced by determination. He grabbed a sturdy branch and joined the fray, his heart pounding as he stood alongside Victor and Buddy. "Not bad, kid," Victor said with a smirk. "Looks like you're tougher than you think." Liam didn't respond, his focus on the remaining gang members. Together, they drove the intruders toward the edge of the ravine, the wolves closing in from behind. The leader, now visibly shaken, shouted, "Fall back, we're outnumbered." The gang retreated, their confidence shattered. Victor watched them disappear into the forest, his stance relaxed but alert. He turned to Liam, his expression a mix of pride and relief. "You did good," Victor said, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. "But it's not over yet." As the gang retreated into the forest, their shouts and curses faded into the distance. Victor stood at the edge of the ravine, his sharp eyes scanning the darkness for any signs of their return. Buddy paced restlessly beside him, his golden fur streaked with dirt and his tail wagging with nervous energy. Liam leaned against a tree, his breathing heavy and his hands trembling from the adrenaline rush. He couldn't believe what he had just been a part of, standing up to dangerous men, facing wolves, and relying on pure instinct to survive. Victor's voice cut through the silence. "They're not gone for good," he said, his tone grave. "They'll regroup and come back." Men like that don't take kindly to being humiliated. "What do we do?" Liam asked, his voice unsteady. Victor turned to him, his expression firm. "We prepare. They know the forest better than we do, but we've got the advantage now. They're scared." "That buys us time," Buddy barked softly, his head turning toward the shadows. Liam followed his gaze and saw the faint outline of the wolf pack lingering in the distance. Their piercing eyes glinted in the moonlight, a silent reminder of the balance of power in the forest. Victor sighed. "The wolves won't stay neutral for long. If they feel threatened, they'll attack anyone, us included. We need to move." Victor led Liam and Buddy along a narrow trail, the terrain becoming increasingly rugged. The moonlight barely penetrated the thick canopy above, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance with every step. Liam's nerves were on edge, his ears straining to catch any sound that might signal danger. "Where are we going?" Liam asked, struggling to keep up with Victor's brisk pace. "There's an old ranger station about a mile from here," Victor replied. "It's abandoned, but it'll give us shelter and a defensible position." Buddy trotted ahead, his nose to the ground as he sniffed out the trail. His occasional barks and growls reassured Liam that the dog was alert to any threats. As they pressed on, the forest seemed to close in around them. The distant howls of wolves echoed through the trees, mingling with the rustling of leaves and the occasional snap of a branch. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. They reached the ranger station, just as the first hints of dawn began to creep over the horizon. The small wooden structure was weathered and overgrown with vines, but it was sturdy enough to serve their purposes. Victor wasted no time securing the area, checking for weak points and fortifying the door with a heavy beam he found inside. "Liam," he said, tossing a flashlight to the younger man, "look for supplies. Anything we can use, tools, rope, anything." Liam nodded and began searching the room. The station was sparse, its shelves mostly empty except for a few dusty items left behind. He found an old first aid kit, some rope, and a rusted hatchet. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Buddy stayed by the door, his ears perked and his nose twitching. His low growls signaled that the gang wasn't far behind. Victor sat at the center of the room, examining the items Liam had gathered. "Not bad," he said, holding up the hatchet. "This might come in handy." "What about the wolves?" Liam asked, his voice tinged with worry. "What if they decide to attack us instead of the gang?" Victor gave him a reassuring look. "Wolves are smart. They won't risk a fight unless they're desperate, but that doesn't mean we can let our guard down." As if on cue, a loud crash echoed from outside, followed by the sound of breaking branches. Liam's heart leapt into his throat as he scrambled to his feet. Victor grabbed the hatchet and motioned for Liam to stay back. The door rattled as something slammed against it. Buddy barked furiously, his body tense as he prepared to defend his humans. Victor stepped forward, his movements deliberate and calm. "It's them," he muttered, peering through a crack in the door. "They're trying to flush us out." The gang had returned, their numbers bolstered and their resolve hardened. They shouted threats as they surrounded the station, their flashlights cutting through the early morning gloom. "Come out, old man," the leader bellowed. "You think you can humiliate us and get away with it?" Victor didn't flinch. "Stay quiet," he whispered to Liam. "Let them think we're cornered." Liam's mind raced as he tried to come up with a plan. He looked at Buddy, the dog's unwavering determination sparking an idea. "Victor," he whispered, "Buddy can lead them away. He's fast enough to outrun them, and we can follow once they're distracted." Victor hesitated, his protective instincts clashing with the logic of Liam's plan. Finally, he nodded. "All right, but we don't leave him behind. As soon as they're gone, we move." Victor opened a small side window and signaled to Buddy. The dog leapt through without hesitation, his golden coat blending with the forest as he darted toward the gang. His barks echoed through the trees, drawing the men's attention. "There he is!" one of them shouted. "After him!" The gang splintered, their focus shifting to Buddy as they chased him into the forest. Victor and Liam seized the moment, slipping out the back door and into the shadows. Liam's heart ached as he heard Buddy's barks growing fainter, but he knew they had no choice. "Stay safe, Buddy," he whispered, his resolve hardening. Victor placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. "He'll be fine. Now let's finish this." Victor and Liam moved swiftly through the dense forest, their steps careful but determined. The gang's shouts and curses echoed in the distance, gradually fading as Buddy led them deeper into the woods. Despite the temporary reprieve, the tension between the two men was palpable. "Victor," Liam whispered, his voice trembling, "do you think Buddy will make it? What if—" "He'll make it," Victor interrupted, his tone firm but reassuring. "That dog's smarter than those men put together. Trust him." Liam swallowed hard, nodding as he clutched the rusted hatchet in his hand. The weight of their situation pressed down on him, but Victor's unwavering confidence was like a lifeline. They had to stay focused. There was no room for doubt. As they navigated the uneven terrain, Victor's sharp eyes scanned their surroundings. He motioned for Liam to stop, pointing to a narrow game trail that veered off the main path. "This way," he said. "It's a shortcut to the creek. We can regroup there and figure out our next move." Liam followed without question, his mind racing with thoughts of Buddy and the gang. He could still hear the occasional bark in the distance, a faint reminder that their loyal companion was risking everything to protect them. "Victor," Liam began hesitantly, "why are you doing this? You don't even know me or Buddy. You could have just walked away." Victor glanced at him, his expression unreadable. "Sometimes life doesn't give you the luxury of walking away," he said quietly. "You and that dog reminded me of that." Liam didn't press further. The weight in Victor's voice told him there was more to the story, but now wasn't the time to delve into it. They had more immediate concerns, like staying alive. The creek came into view, its gentle flow glistening in the early morning light. Victor crouched by the water's edge, cupping his hands to drink while Liam kept watch. The forest seemed deceptively calm, the chaotic events of the night feeling like a distant memory, but the peace was short-lived. A rustling in the underbrush snapped both men to attention. Victor motioned for Liam to stay low as he drew his knife, his body tense and ready for action. The sound grew louder, closer, until a familiar golden figure emerged from the foliage. "Buddy!" Liam exclaimed, his voice a mix of relief and disbelief. The dog bounded toward them, his tail wagging furiously despite the mud and scratches marring his coat. He stopped in front of Liam, nudging him with his nose before turning to Victor, his ears perked and his body alert. Victor's eyes narrowed. "He's trying to tell us something." Liam knelt beside Buddy, gently patting his head. "What is it, boy? What's wrong?" Buddy barked sharply, turning his head toward the trail they had just come from. He repeated the motion, his urgency unmistakable. "They're coming," Victor said grimly. "They must have figured out we weren't far." The gang's voices grew louder, their taunts and threats echoing through the trees. Victor stood, his posture resolute. "We're out of time. They'll find us here." "What do we do?" Liam asked, panic creeping into his voice. "We can't fight them all." Victor's gaze hardened as he scanned the area. His eyes landed on a rocky outcrop near the creek, its narrow ledge leading to higher ground. "We use the terrain to our advantage," he said. "Get to higher ground, make them come to us." Liam hesitated, his fear palpable. "And if they catch us?" Victor placed a hand on his shoulder, his grip firm. "Then we don't give up." "We fight," Buddy barked in agreement, his tail wagging as if to bolster Liam's resolve. The young man took a deep breath, nodding as he followed Victor toward the outcrop. The climb was treacherous, the loose rocks threatening to give way beneath their feet. Buddy moved with agility, his instincts guiding him as he led the way. Victor and Liam followed close behind, their progress slow but steady. They reached the top just as the gang emerged from the trail below. The leader, a burly man with a scar across his cheek, sneered as he spotted them. "Thought you could run, huh?" he shouted. "End of the line, old man." Victor didn't flinch. He stood tall, his knife gleaming in the sunlight. "You want us?" he called back. "Come and get us." The gang hesitated, their confidence wavering as they sized up the steep incline. The scarred leader growled, gesturing for two of his men to advance. They scrambled up the rocks, their footing uncertain as Victor and Liam prepared for the confrontation. The first man reached the top, his sneer quickly turning to shock as Buddy lunged at him, his teeth sinking into the man's arm. The attacker screamed, losing his balance and tumbling back down the slope. The second man hesitated, his gaze darting between Victor's knife and Buddy's bared teeth. Liam took advantage of the moment, swinging the hatchet with all his strength. The blunt side struck the man's knee, sending him crumpling to the ground. Victor's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "Anyone else?" The remaining gang members faltered, their bravado giving way to fear. The scarred leader snarled in frustration, barking orders to retreat. "This isn't over, old man," he spat, before disappearing into the trees. Victor watched until the gang was out of sight, his knife still at the ready. When he was certain they were gone, he turned to Liam and Buddy, a rare smile breaking through his stern exterior. "You did good," he said simply. Liam sank to the ground, his body trembling from the adrenaline rush. Buddy curled up beside him, his tail wagging weakly as Liam stroked his fur. Victor crouched beside them, his expression softening. "We're not safe yet," he said. "But we've bought ourselves some time." The forest fell silent again, save for the rustling leaves and the faint murmur of the creek below. Liam sat against a jagged rock, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. Buddy lay beside him, his golden fur streaked with dirt and scratches, but his spirit as unbroken as ever. Victor stood at the edge of the rocky outcrop, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of the gang's return. "They'll regroup," Victor said after a moment, his voice low and steady. "People like that don't give up easily. They'll come back with a plan, maybe even reinforcements." Liam's head jerked up at Victor's words, fear flashing across his face. "What do we do? We can't just keep running forever." Victor turned to face him, his expression as stern as ever but tinged with an unspoken respect. "We don't run, not anymore. If they come back, we stand our ground. But first, we need to make sure Buddy is okay." Buddy lifted his head at the sound of his name, his tail wagging faintly. Victor knelt beside him, running his hands over the dog's body to check for injuries. "He's tough," Victor muttered, "but he's been through a lot. We need to clean those scratches before they get infected." Liam nodded, his determination hardening. "There's a first aid kit in the truck. If we can get back to it—" "We will," Victor interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "But we need to be smart about it. The gang's focus will be on finding us, not the truck. That's our advantage." As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the trees, Victor and Liam began their careful descent from the outcrop. Buddy trotted ahead, his energy seemingly renewed despite the ordeal he had just endured. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the quiet almost too perfect, as if nature itself was waiting for the final confrontation. When they reached the base of the outcrop, Victor signaled for them to stop. He crouched low, motioning for Liam to follow suit. "Listen," he whispered. Liam strained his ears, his heart pounding. At first, all he could hear was the gentle rustle of leaves. But then faintly, the sound of voices reached his ears. Low, angry murmurs carried on the breeze. "They're close," Victor said grimly, "but they haven't found the truck yet. We have to move quickly." The trio moved through the forest with deliberate silence, every step calculated to avoid detection. Victor led the way, his years of experience evident in the way he navigated the terrain. Liam followed closely, his grip tight on the hatchet he had salvaged from the ranger station. Buddy brought up the rear, his sharp eyes and ears constantly scanning for danger. They reached the truck just as the sun fully broke over the horizon, bathing the clearing in golden light. Victor motioned for Liam to stay low as he approached the vehicle, his knife at the ready. When he was certain the area was clear, he waved them over. "Get the first aid kit," Victor instructed. "I'll keep watch." Liam scrambled into the cab, his hands fumbling as he searched for the kit. Buddy sat by his side, his nose pressed against the door as if he, too, was keeping watch. When Liam finally found the kit, he turned to Victor, his voice shaky but determined. "Got it. What now?" Victor didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the forest, his body tense. "They're here," he said quietly. The gang emerged from the trees moments later, their faces twisted with anger and determination. The scarred leader stood at the forefront, his eyes locking onto Victor with a look of pure hatred. "You think you're clever, old man?" he sneered. "You think you can humiliate us and get away with it?" Victor didn't flinch. He stepped forward, his knife glinting in the sunlight. "This is your last chance," he said, his voice cold and unwavering. "Leave now and no one else gets hurt." The leader laughed, a cruel, grating sound. "You're outnumbered. You've got nothing but a dog and a scared kid. What can you possibly do?" Victor's lips curled into a slight smile. "Enough." Before the leader could react, Buddy lunged forward with a ferocious bark, his teeth bared and his eyes blazing. The gang scattered in panic, their bravado crumbling in the face of the dog's fearless charge. Victor and Liam moved as one, using the chaos to their advantage. Victor disarmed one of the men with a swift, practiced motion, while Liam swung the hatchet, forcing another to retreat. The scarred leader stumbled backward, his confidence shattered. "This isn't over," he shouted, his voice tinged with desperation. "You'll regret this." Victor advanced on him, his knife raised. "No," he said evenly. "You will." The gang finally fled, their shouts and curses fading into the distance. Victor lowered his knife, his shoulders relaxing for the first time in hours. Liam sank to the ground, his chest heaving as the adrenaline left his body. Buddy trotted over to Liam, his tail wagging and his tongue lolling out in a triumphant grin. Liam laughed, wrapping his arms around the dog. "You're amazing, Buddy, absolutely amazing." Victor watched them with a rare smile, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and relief. "You both did good," he said simply. The forest clearing, now quiet and bathed in the soft glow of morning light, felt like a sanctuary after the chaos. Victor, Liam and Buddy stood amidst the aftermath of the gang's retreat, their collective breath steadying. But the battle wasn't over, not in their minds or hearts. Victor approached Buddy, crouching to meet the dog's eyes. The loyal retriever had proven his courage in the most incredible way, yet his limping gait betrayed the toll the encounter had taken. "Let's take care of you now, boy," Victor murmured, his voice softer than Liam had ever heard. Buddy nudged Victor's hand, a sign of trust and resilience. As Liam retrieved the first aid kit from the truck, a faint noise drifted through the clearing, a whimper, low and sorrowful. Buddy's ears perked up, his tail wagging weakly as he turned his head toward the sound. Liam froze, exchanging a bewildered look with Victor. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Victor nodded, his gaze narrowing toward the dense tree line. "Stay here," he ordered, his tone firm but calm. "I'll check it out." Victor moved through the brush with precision, his movements silent as he followed the sound. The whimpers grew louder, each one pulling him closer to the source. Finally, he pushed aside a cluster of branches to reveal a shocking sight. A second dog, smaller and frailer than Buddy, tangled in a crude wire trap. The dog's golden coat was matted with dirt and blood, its ribs visible beneath its skin. Its wide, fearful eyes met Victor's, and for a moment, neither moved. "It's okay," Victor said gently, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. "I'm here to help." With painstaking care, Victor loosened the wires, freeing the dog from its cruel restraints. The dog hesitated, trembling with fear and pain, before collapsing into Victor's arms. As he carried the frail creature back to the clearing, his mind raced with questions. Was this dog another victim of the gang? And why had Buddy reacted so strongly? When Victor emerged from the trees, Liam's jaw dropped. "There's another one," he asked, rushing forward. Buddy barked excitedly, wagging his tail despite his own exhaustion. The smaller dog lifted its head weakly, its eyes brightening at the sight of Buddy. "They know each other," Victor said, his voice tinged with amazement. He gently set the dog down beside Buddy, and the two animals immediately began nuzzling each other, their bond unmistakable. "This isn't a coincidence." Liam's eyes widened as he pieced it together. "Do you think there's their family?" Victor nodded. "Could be. This dog might have been part of Buddy's life before he came to the shelter." As Liam tended to the smaller dog's wounds, Buddy lay beside it, offering comfort in a way only he could. Victor stepped back, watching the scene with a rare sense of hope. Despite everything they had endured, this moment felt like a victory, a testament to the resilience of both humans and animals. But the peace was short-lived. A low rumble echoed in the distance, the unmistakable sound of approaching vehicles. Victor's expression darkened. "They're coming back." Liam's stomach sank. "What do we do?" Victor's gaze hardened with resolve. "We don't let them take this moment from us." Victor and Liam worked quickly, preparing for the gang's return. They moved the dogs into the truck's cab, ensuring they were safe and secure. Then, armed with their limited resources and an unshakable determination, they braced themselves for the final confrontation. When the gang's trucks roared into the clearing, Victor stepped forward, his knife gleaming in the sunlight. Liam stood beside him, clutching a sturdy branch he had fashioned into a makeshift weapon. Together, they formed a united front, a symbol of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. The gang's leader stepped out of the lead truck, his face twisted with rage. "Ah, you've got some nerve, old man," he spat. "Hand over the dogs and maybe we'll let you walk away." Victor smirked, his confidence unshaken. "You didn't learn your lesson last time, did you? These dogs aren't yours to take, and neither is our freedom." The leader sneered. "Who you think you can stop us?" Victor's smile widened. "I don't need to stop you, I just need to stall you." As if on cue, the sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The gang leader's expression shifted from arrogance to panic as police vehicles barreled into the clearing, their lights flashing. Officers poured out, weapons drawn, surrounding the gang with military precision. Victor's plan had worked. Before the gang's trucks had even arrived, he had used a burner phone he'd found in their discarded supplies to call for help, providing enough details to mobilize law enforcement. "Always have a backup plan," he said with a satisfied grin. The gang members surrendered without a fight, their earlier bravado evaporating in the presence of overwhelming force. As the officers cuffed the leader, Victor turned to Liam and clapped a hand on his shoulder. "I did good, kid." With the danger finally behind them, Victor and Liam returned to the truck, where Buddy and his newfound companion waited. Liam reached out to pet both dogs, his smile radiant despite the exhaustion in his eyes. "We're safe now," he said softly. "All of us." Victor nodded, his gaze softening as he looked at the two dogs. "This wasn't just a rescue," he said quietly. "It was a reunion." The forest, once a battleground of tension and danger, now felt serene in the golden glow of the afternoon sun. As the last of the gang's vehicles were towed away and the officers wrapped up their investigation, Victor and Liam stood by the truck, watching the two dogs nestled together. Despite the scratches and dirt, there was an undeniable sense of peace in their presence. Victor broke the silence. "You don't see that kind of loyalty every day," he said, nodding toward the dogs. "They've been through hell and back, but they never gave up on each other." Liam nodded, his gaze fixed on Buddy and the smaller dog. "It's like they knew they'd find each other again no matter what." A young officer approached them, a clipboard in hand. "Mr. Victor, Mr. Liam, we've taken statements from you both. Thank you for your bravery. You've helped bring down a dangerous group today. Victor gave a curt nod. Just doing what needed to be done. The officer smiled. Well, what you did goes beyond that. Those 2 dogs are lucky you stepped in when you did. And so is this town. As the officer walked away, Liam turned to Victor, his expression thoughtful. What happens to them now? He asked, gesturing toward the dogs. Victor crouched down to scratch Buddy behind the ears. The shelter might take them back, but after all they've been through, they deserve a real home. Liam hesitated, then spoke up. Maybe I could take them. I mean, if that's okay. I've been thinking about getting a dog, and now it feels like this was meant to happen. Victor raised an eyebrow, a rare smile tugging at the corner of his lips. You sure you're ready for that responsibility, kid? Liam grinned. After today, I think I can handle it. The decision seemed to sit well with Buddy and his companion, who wagged their tails enthusiastically as Liam knelt beside them. We're going to figure this out together, he said, his voice full of promise. No more danger, no more fear. Just a fresh start. Victor stood, watching the scene with a quiet sense of satisfaction. You've got a good heart, Liam. Don't lose it. The drive back into town was a quiet one, each of them lost in their thoughts. Liam, with Buddy and the smaller dog nestled at his feet, couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose he hadn't known before. Victor, sitting beside him, reflected on the chain of events that had brought them here. Though his life had been shaped by countless battles, today felt different, more personal. When they reached Liam's small house on the outskirts of town, Victor helped unload the few supplies they had taken with them. The dogs explored the yard with cautious excitement, their noses buried in the grass as they began to adjust to their new surroundings. Looks like they're settling in already, Victor observed, his tone light but warm. Liam smiled. Yeah, I think this is going to work out. As Victor prepared to leave, Liam stopped him. Hey, Victor, I just wanted to say thank you for everything. I don't think I could have done any of this without you. Victor shrugged, but there was a glimmer of pride in his eyes. You had it in you all along, kid. Sometimes all it takes is the right moment to bring it out. Liam watched as Victor climbed into his truck and drove off, the old ranger leaving as quietly as he had entered his life. Turning back to the yard, he saw Buddy and the smaller dog playing together, their tails wagging in perfect harmony. For the first time in a long while, Liam felt a sense of peace. This incredible journey of courage, loyalty, and second chances reminds us all of the power of connection, whether between people or animals. It's a story that shows how, even in the face of danger, compassion and bravery can triumph. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with someone who loves stories of heroism and friendship. Subscribe to our channel for more tales that inspire and uplift, and click on the next video for another unforgettable adventure. What would you have done in Liam's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.